Dr. Steve Pieczenik is a frequent guest of ours. He's been coming on since 2002. He's been exposing the fact that criminal elements of multinational conglomerates are working with radical Islam, Saudi Arabia, and others to bring in a police state in the West. And, of course, the payoff to Saudi Arabia is they get to control the Middle East. They get to spread their form of Wahhabism across the board. Now, Dr. Pieczenik is probably one of the leading experts on what's really happening in the Middle East. He successfully, as the head of PSYOPs for the White House at the Camp David Accords, actually got the only effective peace treaty in the Middle East that held for any amount of time. And, of course, the leader of Egypt was later assassinated by a jihadist to basically unseat all of that. And he can talk about Arabists, who they are. He can talk about the different players. And he'll really give you a straight shot on this. But here's what I want to ask him. We have this gentleman and others and their families being brought into the country. We have 5 million, quote, refugees in Europe. It's in the hundreds of thousands here. They're keeping those numbers secret. They know there's going to be certain amounts of them that are being radicalized by ISIS propaganda that is just the new name for al-Qaeda. They're going to attack. And when they do attack, the government that brought them in should get the blame. But if there is a victory over common sense, instead they'll just say, we've got to have political correctness laws, hate speech laws, that you can't criticize Islam. You're causing them to attack. That's what Europe's already done. Civil emergency in Germany and other areas. France, you name it, Sweden. But I just don't see that flying here in the United States. It's really waking up gun owners. Gun sales are now at record levels yet again. Smith & Wesson and others have raised prices today. A lot of liberals are going out buying guns. The homosexual community is really waking up that they were targeted by this guy who reportedly didn't shoot black people. He said, I have no, quote, problem with blacks. Just bizarre behavior. Now we learned he was on these gay dating apps, the Guardian's reporting, and that he went to the gay club a lot. That's how he got in so easily. Then he worked for this security company with ties to the CIA. Now, I want to be clear. When something's a false flag, we expose it. This is more of a stand down in that they brought these folks in. The FBI knew. They were told to stand down by the State Department of all people. Whistleblowers have gone public. Just like San Bernardino, the FBI was ordered to stand down 2 years before when these people were going back and forth with Saudi Arabia. This guy did this too, this Matin. So why is Obama so paralyzed on radical Islam? Why are they bringing in so many of these people? Who is Huma Abedin? The word is she's like a Saudi operative. Hillary's girlfriend. Is the White House blackmailed by Saudi Arabia, or are they just bought off by him? We have video Saturday. General Petraeus walks out of Bilderberg. Reporters walk up, and he runs from them. And our reporters chase him through the streets of Dresden. We're going to play that footage today. It's up on Infowars.com. Peter Thiel got cornered, had to answer questions. So a lot of big things are happening, and Petraeus is getting all this money from the Saudis now. The Saudis are making a major move. Why is Europe bringing in 5 million people, 80% of them military-age men? We had a stabbing today by a jihadist pledging allegiance in France to ISIS. This guy's brother-in-law is involved with Obama bringing the refugees in. Suddenly in Austin, Texas, downtown or north or south, all over, there are women with burqas, not just hijabs everywhere. I mean, where I live, I'm seeing women in full Saudi Arabian slave outfits. It's freaking me out. So I don't want the Dick Cheney class of civilizations, but what do I do once they've stirred up the Middle East, made it fail, put radicals in, they're bringing them in to attack, and they think they're going to blame gun owners and veterans for the deaths? No, we're going to blame Hillary Clinton and Obama and the globalists and the neocons. So I want to ask Dr. Pieczenik where he thinks all this is going. I know he was coming on today to talk about a book he wrote about his mother, but he wants to do that another time, so we'll do that in a few weeks. But it's an interesting story. It's very political as well. But Dr. Pieczenik obviously has been involved in all the world special operations, one of the guys with General Boykin and others that founded Delta Force. I'm not going to go over his whole background. He's a psychiatrist and a medical doctor. He can speak to the psychology of all of this, and I don't know his views yet on it. We're going to find out. I respect him. I just want to get him on and get his views right now. Dr. Pieczenik, thanks for joining us. In the 4 minutes till break, what do you think really happened here, and what does this signify? And again, as I asked, is Obama blackmailed? Is he a closet Muslim? I mean, I know they're trying to have a clash of civilizations. Are the globalists double-crossing the West, and are they deciding to go Islamic long-term? What's happening?
What's really happening is we have a very dysfunctional intelligence system, in particular the FBI and the CIA. Let me go over this. Since 9/11, you have to remember that both the CIA, the FBI, military intelligence, and an entire group of security apparatuses joined in the stand down false flag. Nothing has really changed. Obama was brought in, as I said to you, and nobody believed it. Obama, Clinton, Bush Jr., Bush Sr. by the CIA. Then they're put into the political arena where they're either Republicans.
So really we're talking about the incompetency of the CIA coup we've had since 1963?
Yeah, in this case, it's the FBI. Let me go backwards and give you some basic points that should have been brought up, not by you. I always appreciate being on your show, but by people in general. 2 days ago, I wrote a blog which said very clearly that Mateen was radicalized in his home. Number one, he was a homosexual. It was so obvious to me as a psychiatrist. It was obvious, and it should have been obvious to the FBI and anybody who interrogated him for 7 months or 10 months, that he was a closeted homosexual who wasn't closeted. Now, why is this important? Because he went out for 150 miles, went to that club several times, which I suspected was true, and in fact killed the very people to which he identified. Now, what makes that interesting in the Muslim religion is that Islam denies the importance and legitimacy of the gay homosexual, but on the other hand, they practice homosexuality. So you have this paradox in all of the Arab world, where on the one hand, they will stone women and they will stone men who commit homosexual acts. But the very essence of Islam and bonding of the men is homosexual. But they don't call it that. They call it attraction and bonding of brotherhood. They use other words for it. So in fact, what you've seen is the very paradox of Islam, and it should have been brought out by the intelligence community, by the FBI, and it was obvious. Secondly, he was radicalized at home. He was radicalized by a father who was a mushahadin. In fact, his father, who I wrote about, is named Sadiq Mir Mateen. He's an Afghani mushahadin who was brought in by the CIA. The FBI knew about it. He has a weekly radio show where he goes in full military regalia as a mushahadin. That means as a Sunni Afghani who bemoans the fact that Pakistan is attacking Afghanistan. Now, if the FBI didn't know that, this is pathetic, because, in fact, the father lied when he said, I don't know anything about my son. It never occurred.
Dr. Pieczenik, stay there. I'm going to come back and give you the floor. And by the way, you did write this 2 days ago. It's all turned out to be dead on accurate.
Correct.
We're going to take your article, post it to Infowars.com and say,
no problem.
Headline like, psychiatrist accurately predicted that Orlando shooter was a homosexual radicalized at home. We're going to push that headline out, pointing out that it was first published actually on Sunday. So we're talking basically 2.5, 3 days ago. Dr. Pieczenik knows his stuff. Top psych warfare expert. Dr. Steve Pieczenik, again, is retired, but he's one of the top former experts for the Pentagon, the State Department, you name it, on psychological operations with foreign governments, overthrow of governments, stabilization of governments, you name it. And he's seen it all, folks. And the info he's given us over the years has always been so accurate, especially long-term. I personally am so upset about all these radical Muslims they're bringing in. They're protecting, they're allowing to attack. They bring in the latest groups. They then radicalize the last group that was already here. And a lot of this, from my own just lay psychology studying it, they don't feel wanted. They don't feel like they're part of the culture. They're very conflicted. You're mixing folks from radical Orthodox Islamic countries with one of the wildest, laissez-faire, decadent societies out there. I don't agree with all the decadence. I don't endorse it, but in a free society, you have to let it operate. Well, you bring people in where daddy's got a radio show saying kill the gays, and your imam says kill the gays, and you're sneaking off to the gay nightclub, and then finally you have a breakdown and want to commit suicide by cop. And plus, Islamic State saying go out and kill, it's a mentally ill mindset. I mean, this just all fits from my own study of Islam, the massive amount of homosexuality and pedophilia. That's what I talked about yesterday, and they had a bunch of newspapers attack me. But here is U.S. government top psychiatrist that helped write the Camp David Accords, okay? He's telling you the same thing I told you, but I'm just a layperson that's done basic research. Dr. Pieczenik, this is a short segment, long segment coming up, but is my statement there somewhat accurate that it's a culture shock as well for these people?
Well, there's no question of bringing in Muslims in general is a culture shock, but we have to differentiate. The very important objective here is one of the reasons why we have gone and opened up Iran, which was a very important strategic move, was to literally neutralize Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the Emirates and Kuwait, because they had for a long time under the CIA, under our military support, been extruding out all of these terrorist groups. So Iran, in effect, which is a Shiite country, does not have the same demonstration or the same profile as you have in the Sunnis. The Shiites have been doing the major part of our war in Syria against the Sunnis in Yemen, and they have been taking the bulwark of this entire war. Now, with all due respect, I want to put in perspective. Number one, Hezbollah, which was considered a terrorist group, comes out of Lebanon. These are the young men who fight literally 10 minutes from their house. Imagine going from Austin 10 minutes out and are fighting ISIS, hand-to-hand combat, without the support that we give them. At the same time, the Kurds, who have been suppressed by the Sunnis and the Saudis, are fighting. So you can't make a generalized statement.
No, I totally understand. We're talking about Wahhabist, Saudi Arabia,
Alex,
ISIS.
I understand, but we have to appreciate that there are forces now in play where our special forces like Kennedy go in and help out our forces in Iraq and Syria. And in fact, the intelligence reports, and unfortunately it's not coming forth to the public, it shows that we're degrading ISIS. This was not an ISIS-inspired entity, because if you give ISIS that credit and legitimacy, we're really putting ISIS up there when, in fact, it's a pathetic organization that is no longer viable.
I understand. So is that why Saudi Arabia is freaking out and
Yes.
staging terror?
Saudi Arabia is freaking out for many reasons. Number one, the king who's in charge has to put a prince who's 30 years old, totally incompetent, totally untutored, who's starting a war in Yemen, doesn't know what to do. They have 50% unemployment among their youth. They can't pump out any oil. They had to do an IPO on their oil that was there. Namely, they have to commoditize the little oil they have, and they have failed as an entity.
So we're seeing the fall of the House of Saud potentially?
Correctly. You're seeing the fall of the House of Saud, of Qatar, Kuwait, UAE. All of those countries created by the British and the French are being destroyed. And that's happening as a result of American power,
And that's why we've seen the French and NATO double-crossing trying to back ISIS?
Well, the truth of ISIS is that Syria and Russia, while they're fighting them, is also supplying them. Always remember that in the war of anything, we both supply the people and we fight them. It's never one or the other. Remember 9/11? We supported these people, and then we fought again.
Sure, well, that's pretty much what I figured is going on here. But I want to break down the players, the different power blocks with Dr. Pieczenik.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And get more into this whole jihad, Saudi Arabia culture. Do we expect more frequent attacks? What culturally comes out of that? Dr. Pieczenik's our guest. You heard Dr. Pieczenik mention Tim Kennedy, who is one of the most famous, unfamous soldiers. He's known for the UFC fighting. People think he's even out of the military. He's not out of the military. And I'll just leave it at that. And let's just say we've got some really good reporters on the ground around the world. And I'm just amazed at how patriotic and awake the military is. I've got to say, it's not a cliche. It just tends to be the Army over and over again that exposes 9/11, that exposed Benghazi, that's exposing what's happening in Orlando. By the way, Joe Biggs has huge breaking news. Let's try to get Joe Biggs on at about 45 after with that breaking news directly from the groups on the ground in Orlando. They're looking at accomplices, all right? Well, they found it. And we're going to break it here, all right? But I'm going to be honest with you. I have pretty good self-control. I'm on the air 300-plus days a year. I'm just so upset in general by all the illogic and corruption and things I'm seeing and Hillary Clinton getting away with all these crimes that I physically got so angry last hour I could hardly be on air. And I guess I got to ask Dr. Pieczenik, who's a psychiatrist, that phenomenon, how to calm down from that. Because I've had one cup of coffee today. I'm flying. I'm speeding right now like I'm on methamphetamine, and I'm not. And it's just the climate. And every time I feel like this, historically, I have a good spider sense. Everybody has it, a sixth sense. And I just see things lining up politically, economically, in a very, very dangerous way. And I know that there are actually good forces in our government that are trying to countermand the bad forces. And I'd always been told those forces were there. And, of course, there's good and bad, but organized. And then we learned what Dr. Pieczenik and Colonel Schaefer and countless others told us on air and off air in the last 5-6 years, that our own military was blocking Al-Qaeda and then ISIS. That was a term to confuse the public, and that we were aiding the Russians to take them out. And even Cy Hirsch came on a few months ago and thanked our broadcast and said we were accurate and good sources and that we were correct. And then, of course, Dr. Pieczenik came on and talked about it. But I'm not here bragging about this. This is surreal. I don't want the responsibility of being this close to the center of all this. But then I sit around and I see a bunch of jellyfish that don't even know which end is up. And I mean men that are successful in business, in life. They've got high IQs, beautiful wives, great kids, but they don't think it's their responsibility to be involved or care. And I've psychoanalyzed myself. I am raging at men who are not being men. Because, man, I don't want to see us have a nuclear war. I don't want to see a Great Depression. I don't want to see things unravel. And let me tell you, it is unraveling. And our political class are the ones accelerating that. And there are good people in government, corporations, and private institutions that are trying to stop it. But I tell you, I look at the whole continuum of it, and it's going in a very frightening direction. I know Pieczenik's an optimist and, always can give us the incredible inside baseball on what the thinking is of groups that don't want to destroy the country and the world. But just at a gut level, absorbing it all, I've never been more angry. I'll just be, and it's controlled anger. It's controlled anger, but I am just sick dealing with it. And I'm going to get his view on that here in a moment. And then, speak of the devil, we have a clip shot 2 weeks ago by Tim Kennedy that wasn't going to be released till tomorrow, talking about political correctness will kill you. So that's coming up in the next hour. We're going to premiere that here because Tim Kennedy is working with InfoWars now. And a lot of other great folks can be working with InfoWars, taking the globalist on. But we're going to go back to Dr. Pieczenik in a moment. I didn't plug anything in the first hour, which is crazy, and I skipped 2 ads. I got to stop doing that. We need you to buy the products and support this operation. We got the best products out there, whether it's nutraceuticals, non-GMO seeds, Hillary for Prison shirts, books, films, you name it, InfoWarsStore.com. Storable food. We have 20% off today on the ProPure family of water filters, including their incredible 4-stage shower filter. You absorb so much crap out of the water, the glyphosates, the fluoride, the chlorine, the bromine, just all these chemicals. We have 20% off for a limited time on all Lexapure water filters at InfoWarsStore.com. You get free shipping on orders $50 or more. You can also get 10% off on anything you get auto ship, like the vitamins and minerals and other supplements. But the Alexa Pure water filters 20% off at InfoWarsStore.com for a limited time only. From the super high-quality, gravity-fed Alexa Pure Pro water filtration systems to shower filters, now is the time to stock up for the lowest prices. The Alexa Pure filtration system removes up to 99.9999% of bacteria, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. You can even filter water from lakes, rivers, streams. Look, it's the best system out there. Alexa Pure is great, too. It's all basically, they're apples and oranges. We have a bunch of great systems that cut basically everything down to 99.9999, whatever. Point is, this is 20% off right now. Great gravity-fed stainless steel systems. Check out the water filtration systems at InfoWarsStore.com. Take advantage of that today. And finally, I want to tell you about a separate sponsor, and that's solutionsfromscience.com. Great preparedness, great survival stuff across the board. Really, really high-quality products, discounted. And they only do sponsorship with us when they're doing a special. And they're running a special at solutionsfromscience.com on an amazing solar panel generator system and control panel. From solar power generators to survival gear and fertilizers, they're all available right now through Solutions from Science website. And Solutions from Science recently bought a surplus of solar power generators and are offering a discount to listeners who visit their website, solutionsfromscience.com, or give them a call, 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365. Or again, go to InfoWarsLife.com to find all of the amazing products. It's not discounted anymore because it's almost sold out. But so what if it's not 20% off? Get it, support the broadcast on harmful organism parasite cleanse, 120 caplets. It's 27 ingredients, all organic, all super clean. That's why it's so hard to, we've been sold out for 6 months because it's hard to get 27 ingredients to pass California standards. And we always shoot for that. But we now have it back in stock, but it's about to sell out. The special's over. But you can still get Living Defense at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. Now, again, Dr. Steve Pieczenik is with us. I do want to have him back up if we can get him to come on and talk about it. I want to talk about terrorism today, about the book about his mother, A Voyage of Survival, Living and Love, Steve R. Pieczenik, MD, PhD, because it'll really give you a bird's eye view on what people have gone through to try to get to America and, why there's so many great people that have come to this nation that actually now are the bedrock of it. But find out about it and get the book at stevepieczenik.com. But he did not want to get into that today. He wanted to talk about the issues that we were just getting into. So set the table for us. I know I do a disservice if I talk about the horrible pedophile hordes of the Wahhabists and associate that with the Shiites, who are a completely different group and are arch enemies with the House of Saud. So let's spend some time on this. What you expect the fall of the House of Saud to look like, how far into it we are, what you expect their death throes to be. They're bragging they have nuclear weapons, which we know they've had for a while, according to my sources. Where does all this go? How do the Russians tie in with Syria? Dr. Pieczenik.
Here's what we really have. Let's go back to home. Number one, we have to ask for the resignation of James Comey and the FBI interrogators. He has been a disaster. I have been waiting for his indictment of Hillary, which was not a brain teaser. It was obvious. It was necessary. He did not perform accordingly. Therefore, his performance on this last interview, or this last inability to figure out who Mateen was, which was basically a 101 class in interrogation and intelligence, should be the basis on which he resigns, Loretta Lynch resigns, and the FBI has to be reprimanded. From the very beginning, when I started the Hanafi Muslim hostage negotiation, the FBI has proven to be a disastrous, dysfunctional organization for which we have paid a tremendous amount of dollars, who was involved with Mueller and 9/11. I ask that the American public send... Okay.
Dr. Pieczenik, we lost your cell phone there for a moment. Are you there? He dropped. We need to get him back. He's always only on cell phone, but it's a pretty clear cell phone. We are allied with radical Islam. The globalists are double-crossing us. The radical Islamists have bought off our politicians, while the group that has done all this is on the verge of collapse. It's admitted that Saudi Arabia is tottering and teetering. They had to borrow $10 billion last month to pay their bills. I mean, these loons are completely spoiled rotten. They're completely disconnected from reality. And then they're out there funding ISIS to run around and tell everybody to go out and jihad and kill. And you've got this guy from Afghanistan radicalized by his father, and we did cover that by Sunday, and by his family, and by his imam saying kill homosexuals. And then Obama says this isn't Islam. And notice how Dr. Pieczenik points out the bizarreness where homosexuality is generally 2 to 3% of the population in the West. We're talking 20, 30% in Islam, in Wahhabist Islam. And the slave trading and just all of it, it is just so crazy that it is the most barbarous, over-the-top civilization anyone has ever seen, other than maybe North Korea. And they just execute and kill whoever they want. And then all over my Facebook and Twitter, there's rainbow flags getting posted going, Alex, you're a homophobe. You know, you gun owners are going to get it and all this stuff. It's just the idiocy. It blows my mind completely that this is going on, and it really frustrates me. Dr. Pieczenik, your phone cut out. You were getting into the details here about the situation with Saudi Arabia.
FBI has to go down. It has to be reprimanded. It has to be totally reorganized. It has to be thrown out. Comey has to leave. The other individuals within the FBI and the senior levels must be fired. Obama cannot do it. He is a weak president. I said it from the day he began, that he was a CIA package that came in through his mother, his grandparents, and that's the CIA bringing in. The CIA has to be held accountable. It, too, has to be put in place. If Mike Flynn comes in, General Flynn comes in, who might be the DNI, Director of National Intelligence under Trump, we might put it under control. But let me get to the issue that you were upset about, too, Petraeus. General Petraeus has unfortunately been a very poor general and really did not stand up for much of what we thought as Americans, as military officers, and as intelligence officers. He was specifically placed in there by me and others as the director of the CIA to have military command and control of a civilian entity that really is out of control. Unfortunately, Petraeus betrayed us by having given 8 of his books to his honey-trapped individual, a woman who did the biography, and Obama had the information on him. So he's weak. He failed, and in fact, he was discredited. I hope nobody really pays any more attention, but what happens in the system is they promote him up, and they give him the 4 stars when he's really done very little. He was shot by his own friend on a gun range, and he was a terrible general and a terrible DCI. That's his legacy. The point of fact is we continued, and the reason why your good reviewer or reporter found him scared is that he is a scared individual. He went through and went up the political ranks. Now we get to the real problem. The real problem is we need a leader who can, in fact, change and redirect our entire government away from what it's been, dysfunctional, incapable of really doing anything, and really destroying our own people. The 9/11 did not go away. These are all of the overshoots of what happens when a government destroys its own people. In turn, that's why I believed we had the right to arm ourselves, we had the right to form militias, we had the right to do what we need to do in order to neutralize an illegal, a totally illegitimate government. And I've said it from day one. Although you got very angry on me, I've said it from the very beginning that we need a political and possibly military solution that comes from the people and possibly our own military.
Well, clearly we've already had a coup by foreign special interests and multinationals through the CIA and the National Security Act by the 70s and 80s. They were able to take over.
We need a counter coup, my friend. What I've been asking for since 9/11 is the Bush family has to be held accountable and the Clintons. What came forth? We had the Bush family and their representatives, the Rubios, the Ted Cruzes, and all of that. We got rid of them through a man called Trump. The Clintons have not been ridden, and they have...
Well, let's get your take on Trump, because I've been told by folks very close to Trump, and we've talked to Trump, obviously, on air and off air, I'll just leave it at that Trump, quote, knows everything, quote, everything.
Well, Trump knows everything, but I'm concerned that he's being co-opted by many of the regular or routine Republicans. I would not have put in Manafort or a whole bunch of these guys who make a living by going around and lobbying other Republicans. I don't think Trump needs it. I think his own instincts were very good. He worked off of his instincts. And honestly, many of his advisors are just the retreads of people who worked for Dole, who worked for Ben Carson and others.
Well, I know they do. I know that, but they admit they were wrong and part of the CIA takeover and actually say they want to overthrow that.
But that's not the issue. The issue is, are they effective? And in my mind, they're not really that effective. Roger Stone is. There are others who were closer to Trump. Corey Landowski was very effective. But once you dilute out that ability, once you have to have him control a massive group of Republicans who need to fund him, we're getting into trouble again. And that's why I'm asking the American people to be prepared for what may be a major confrontation with another corrupt government, and that is the Clintons. Because I am not sure that Trump can make it through. Once he has to depend on the good graces of other Republicans and funding from major Republican entities, they're going to ask much from him. And I had believed that he should have had self-funding, or at least funding from the people.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. He obviously did self-fund in the first phase, but he needs the funding to get there. I understand it's a problem, but I mean, the bottom line is I've been told that Trump says, I'm taking your money, but I'm going to do what I want. You understand that. This money is not buying your support. And the problem is, though, they're then saying, fine, we're not giving you the money, and he's not getting money. So far, he's not getting money because he won't play ball.
Well, that's what has to happen. And then the people have to give him the money through our own donations that are going to be whatever they're going to be. But once you hire on board the Manaforts of this country and the others who demand $20 million for being lobbyists and claim that they put in Bush Sr. when in fact he had nothing to do with that, it was Roger Ailes, Baker, and myself. And he had no idea of what he was talking about. It's the same issue, again, of these Republicans who are retread. They're retread one way or the other, Calistino or whatever his name, the slimy guy who goes on Castellano, who goes on television and reprimands Trump. All of these guys are being brought in. Now, either Trump makes a statement and discards all of them and remains at Corey Landau.
Well, hold on. We got Joe Biggs with the breaking news, but we'll get back to you, Dr. Pieczenik, as well. Stay with us. From Orlando, straight ahead, Joe Biggs. Dr. Steve Pieczenik's our guest, StevePieczenik.com. He's coming back with us at the start of the next hour. They can pop in any time right now, but Joe Biggs reporting from the ground in Orlando, Florida, where I know we have sources inside the national level terrorism investigation. I'll just leave it at that. And there are reports that they want to target the press. But we've got more information now on the investigation into accomplices of the shooter in Orlando that killed at least 49 people. Joe Biggs, what do you have?
Roger that. Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now, we are in Orlando where we've been investigating this terror attack that took place at the Pulse nightclub. And the FBI has just come out and said that Omar Mateen's wife had knowledge of the attack before. Now, days ago, when she was asked by the FBI if she had any knowledge, she lied and said no. She also admitted to going to the stores with him to buy ammunition. Her and Omar also cased out Disney numerous times, and many other times she drove him to the Pulse nightclub to scope out the place. This could be the actual accomplice, or there could be another person as well. But we've had these reports of multiple shooters inside. I talked to a survivor of the shooting who was actually inside the club. I talked to a guy whose friend was the bartender that night, and each person said they heard multiple guns going off, and it was impossible for one person to do this. So was she part of this? Wonder if they were inspired by the couple in San Bernardino that both went and carried that attack out. So this leaves a lot. You know, we know the father was a Taliban sympathizer. So this is really interesting. I mean, we have someone like Huma Aberdeen right beside Hillary Clinton that has connections to the Muslim Brotherhood, and we have all these attacks starting to happen. There's something fishy going on.
Absolutely. I know this. Obama acts like either the Muslim Brotherhood's blackmailing him or something's going on. This Huma Abedin, Dr. Pieczenik, what's your information on her? A lot of folks are saying she's a Saudi operative.
Well, she could be. Well, here's where we get into the intelligence community and what I said a long time ago. When the CIA recruits an individual, particularly a president of the United States, there has to be a psychological deficit and lacunae in their personality. In the case of Bill Clinton, it was the fact his mother was a prostitute. She ran a whorehouse in Hope, Arkansas, and he was nothing but the bastard child of the Johns. In the case of Obama, he was known to be a homosexual in Chicago with Rami Emanuel, who was trained in ballet dancer, and he was recruited by the CIA repeatedly and basically threatened by them and the Muslim Brotherhood and everything else. That's why the political correctness comes in. Now, in the case of Hillary Clinton, I've known her for years, and I've known her other family members. She is a well-known lesbian. The reason why she's been recruited and can be threatened is she's had a history of lesbian affairs, which is relevant only to the fact that it's a national security problem. Aberdeen may be her lover. Aberdeen may be her lesbian lover. I could care less. But the point of fact is that not one of our presidents, presently or in the future, other than Trump, is a highly compromised candidate.
And that's why they hate Trump. He's not compromised. He's open about women.
Let me go into the other element. I have always implicated the Secret Service. They have never served our country. They have always served the person that they were supposed to protect.
Hold on. 70 seconds. We're back with you and Biggs. Stay with us. Third hour, straight ahead. Tell your friends and family. Tune in now, folks. Sign up for the free newsletter. By the way, I'm going to be on 6 to 7 tonight, 6 to 8. Ask me anything at Infowars.com video feed. I forgot to talk about that. The empire we face is systems of corruption and crony centralization. We're the Renaissance. We're not perfect, but that's what I promote. It's what I push. It's what's given us everything good we've got today, in my view. Dr. Steve Pieczenik's our guest. Joe Biggs is calling in with a breaking report. He's been filing amazing reports, news-making reports from Orlando at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. So finishing it with both men, then I'm coming back and covering all the news, video clips, you name it, audio clips. Dr. Pieczenik, you were finishing a point about the Secret Service being sycophantic.
They're totally sycophants. They have been, their only duty is to protect the person in charge. They knew very well what happened in 9/11. They knew very well that the Clintons were compromised, even though there was one book that came out and that was it. They knew very well Obama's history of homosexuality before and after and in the future. They know very well what the issues are with the Clintons. And in fact, we're funding nothing more than the Royal Guard, who has no loyalty to America. This whole issue of the Treasury bills and the fake dollars, that's nonsense. The point of fact is the Secret Service has to be cleaned out, has to be reorganized, and it's only a man like Trump or others like myself who could come in and fire them summarily. They're basically drunks, they're whoremongers, and they really waste our money.
Dr. Pieczenik, I want to briefly come back. This is a short segment. I want to finish it with Biggs and just ask you, with your sources, but also your trained eye, where the country is now, where the world is briefly, and what you would do if you were Donald Trump. Because I know for a fact a lot of the info from the show gets directly to his desk. So I'm going to put you on hold, come back to you after the break.
No problem.
T-minus 4.5 minutes. Biggs, I know you've got a lot of intel. Follow those video reports. We'll get some of those there in the fourth hour and up on Infowars.com. What else can you report on the ground from Orlando?
All right, so what we have so far is actually before – I was actually hanging out last night, and Billy Corgan ran into me, and we were hanging out. But before that happened, something really interesting happened. This man walked up to me, and he goes, "Joe Biggs?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I have some information for you." He says, "One of my really good friends is Louis Bourbano, the guy that was holding the door shut at the nightclub, and he said he wanted me to tell you what happened." So the guy came up to me, and they just called me like an hour ago and told me I could go public and tell this whole story. But the kid's nervous. He's been getting death threats. But he said what happened was they were running outside of the nightclub. He opened the door and saw that it was a fenced-in area. And there was a few people out there. And he decided to shut the door so the shooter could not come outside and start killing those people. So he held the door shut, from what the story is. He held the door shut until people were able to pry that fence open and get a hole big enough for people to go through. And then that's when he removed himself from that area and let people come out. But he was scared that if everyone ran out there and they were caged in like a whole bunch of chickens, that they would just get mowed down and killed. So that's why he held the door shut. And they showed me a video of him soaked in blood, covered in blood from head to toe in a video, that they don't want to use it.
Well, again, I should have thought Megyn Kelly's such a snake. She spins everything. So if we were wrong, we apologize for going with her report. That makes a lot more sense tell them, don't be scared. Get all this out right now, Joe, and just really pressure these folks.
He's going through depression right now. His buddy's worried that he might, do something bad. He's been getting death threats. People are coming up to him, and he's scared. I mean, he's a younger guy. He is a homosexual. He had no ill intention of anything. He was just doing what he thought was best.
I understand, and in the time and all that, and then Megyn Kelly misrepresented it, perhaps, and then we took it wrong. Now that more of the story's out, part of the problem was he was looking at his phone. He seemed confused, so it made him look guilty. He needs to come on air and clarify it, and then that's what will reverse all this. So if you can get him to come on via video Skype or tape it, tell him, get it out, explain what happened, don't stumble through it, and then he'll be left alone. He needs to respond to that. Don't you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I was telling his friend that he needs to come forward at some time, maybe once he calms down.
Absolutely. It'll all blow over. He's going to be fine. But we'll try to clarify that as we get more info. It looks really bad, but perhaps he wasn't getting good audio. Thank you, Joe. Get on that and then pop it anytime you need to. We're going to come back. Ragtag as it is, this is a real threat fusion center where we look at the globalists, we look at government, we look at private individuals. I'm trying to get more analysts, more people in here because it's just overwhelming. It's like we're drinking through straws and they're hitting us with Niagara Falls. About a week ago, this ISIS, or a week and a half ago, this ISIS hit list went out. And it was encrypted. We have a lot of high-level hackers that are friends of the show. We've had a copy of it. Really, no one else has it. It's been expunged. And we have all this national media emailing us. And I think we're going to do a story on this, asking us for the list. And we're not going to put the list out for an obvious reason. Yes, we could publish the list and get millions of viewers to Infowars.com. We're not going to do that. And we're talking, Merkel Phelan that has the list in there that got it from one of these white hat hackers, he has to explain to the media in emails, stop emailing, don't publish the list if you find it, because the jihadis aren't being directed by a central group. They're like fire ants that go off pheromones. They just go off the movement and copycat events. And so if they get the list, that gives them the imperative to go follow their orders. These are like Fantasyland loons that imagine that they're in Mission Impossible and they get their message that destroys in 60 seconds. So we have the list. Obviously, law enforcement has it. We've done articles like, hey, there's 8 people on the hit list in Orlando. And then we've tried to point out to law enforcement, hey, have you contacted these folks? And some of the people have not been contacted. So I would think that, and there's about 3,000 people on the list. Some of it's duplicated. So we think about 2,000 names. So that's going on. But it really blows me away. The mainstream media is so stupid that they want to have the list and are saying they want to publish the list. I mean, I'm no rocket scientist when it comes to this stuff, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, but isn't it smart not to release the list?
I think it's very smart. That's one of the reasons why you should remain on the air and not exhaust yourself. One of the reasons why you have become very important, it's not just you, it's the entire Alex Jones group and phenomenon. We shifted the entire narrative, starting with 9/11, to the point where we now can have a real voice, where we can speak with credibility, and the mainstream media has no more credibility. So what you did was to flip the entire system 180 degrees. That's why I keep on coming onto your show, but also I'm concerned about you as a friend, that you not get so excited, because there's so many wars coming in that the American public whom we deal with, the true Americans, need to know they have to be armed, they have to be educated, they have to react and be proactive, and they have. The phenomenon of Trump did not come from mainstream media. It came from you and the millions of others who were disgusted with what happened, including the Democrats, the independents, and many of us who kept fighting for 14 years. You've been fighting for 14 years, day and night. And so you become an asset that's so important. That's why I could call up and talk to your assistants and say, look, this is great what you're doing, but on the other hand, we have to persevere. I
agree, and I wasn't selfish earlier bringing that up, but you are, a smart guy. I've never been more upset at the system, and I try to not get upset. I'm not like, enjoying getting upset. I just physically get upset by all this sometimes.
No, I understand that, Alex, and I understand you're an emotional, exceedingly bright guy. But in reality, we need your energy to continue in a way that's systematic, the way you have your reporters on the ground.
No, I agree. We're trying to do it. I know.
Of course, Boggs was correct. And any one of us who's been in combat, which we have, we knew very well that one person could not have taken out 50 people plus 49 others, 103 people. So there had to be other people involved. Once again, it goes back to home base. We always have to look at home base. At the CIA for recruiting the father, the FBI involved in this absurd investigation, which is a disaster. That means he has to resign. Loretta Lynch has to resign. The people who were hit or hurt have to file suit against G4S because they were responsible for this security guard who had 2 licenses for acquiring armament. So the president was wrong. As usual, he lies. He's a sociopath, and he lied. The Orlando shooter had the right, with 2 licenses, to acquire.
That's right. Hillary's saying we got to pass more laws, make sure they have licenses.
No,
this guy jumped through all the hoops.
No, that's absurd. He had the right and legitimacy. Where the problem lies is that the people who were involved and their families should now sue G4S, which is a CIA assistant, MI6. It's a disastrous corporation that has over 600,000 mercenaries of the lowest quality. They claim they had evaluated Mateen and they did a psychological operation. Nonsense. That's a lie. They work at the lowest level, at the cheapest level, and if you look at their history, they're continuously merging with other companies because they have a very liquid system in the FTSE or the London Exchange where they just pick up all kinds of junk companies and put them on security. It's an absurd company which has been nothing more than the British, entity that has really failed all over the world and claims that they're premier. They're not premier. And the second part of this is very clear. When the FBI investigates a family, there's no question the father, the wife, and everyone else around them is in collusive element. For them to deny that or not to know that, the FBI has to be reorganized. And
that shows they're trying to cover up the fact that they knew this was coming and basically stood down.
They're incompetent. Forget anything else. They were collusive in 9/11, and they're incompetent now. Either way, they should not exist. Either way, the Secret
All right. Well, Dr. Pieczenik, we're out of time. I want to get you back up in the near future to talk about your book. I've read it.
I want to talk about what's happening because Trump has to understand he has to come in, clean out the government, and put in people who have a history of being effective, not a history of lobbying and working with Republicans. He has to understand his instincts are correct, but he needs to go more effectively against the...
All right, well, let's do this. Let's get you up. Let's get you up for 30 minutes, an hour sometime next week to talk about your advice to Trump. We'll do it then. Thank you, Doctor.
God bless your audience.